Now, this is not some random beach game from 2020 between Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann. This was played in 2024 at the World Blitz Chess Championship in the Big Apple, and no one anywhere on YouTube has covered this game. Why?
So at this point, Magnus and Hans cut out, and there is no game. There is only the live footage, which I might have been able to replicate and put together.
Yes, the transmission cut out, so not Chess.com or any other database has these moves recorded, but fear not. Here at epicchess, we've painstakingly reconstructed this game here for your viewing pleasure. We're going to be diving in right now. It was the Swiss qualifying stage. This is round 11, something like that. Blitz chess, of course, over the board. The tension was through the roof. Let's check it out. Magnus goes e4, best by test. We get the solid e5, and after these opening moves, very standard, Magnus doesn't go for one of the sharper lines. He plays this second knight out, almost falls asleep, just catches himself. This is a bit dry, especially after the fourth horseman of the apocalypse enters the game. Are we going to see a Scotch variation with d4? No. Magnus plays this weird little pawn push. Yes, you take control of g4 and the oft overlooked i4, but you give black a move now. Hans uses it, gobbles up the centre here, and after bishop b5 now, we see takes on c3, mangling the structure. You're usually well advised to capture towards the centre, and after bishop d6, babysitting the central pawn, we see both players castling, but no king safety fist bump. No explosion out, no love lost between these guys, huge history. Long story short, Hans sued Magnus for
$1 million.
or something like that. Anyway, it was actually 100 times that amount, but that was the only meme I had. Now back to the game. We get rook e1 on the board. Hans so impressed he copies. Now d4 fights for the center. You could take e4, but we see bishop d7 breaking the pin. Magnus brings that master blaster onto the open file, and this one asks the question. So the bishop drops back, eyeballs the black king. We get takes in the center. You could recapture that pawn. Legit way to play, but Magnus takes, queen recaptures, and he's like, do you want to fight? Because he brings the knight forward, going for the king once more. Maybe the queen comes streaming out, but of course you're not recapturing your pawn. And after h6, yes, the knight centralizes and prepares to pick up one of those bishops, but you don't have to take, which is what Magnus was probably looking at. You know, then you take here, takes, you mangle the structure, you crash through here. This is weak, this is weak. Loads of compensation with the bishops. However, this not played. After knight e4, pressuring, we see the great move of queen e5. That one's centralized like a black widow. You prepare this massive check, so takes, but now queen recaptures. Structure's intact. Magnus takes here. The pony pops itself in the center, and white's simply worse here. Yes, you've got the bishops, but you're a pawn down, and what you shouldn't do, and Magnus does, is crash through on b7 like this. Terrible move. Look at the reaction here. Stockness Monster has a meltdown. Big blunder. What's the winning move? Can you find it here if I give you 1 billion seconds? So very well done if you saw the idea. It's knight b5 and you're trapping the rook. It can't now escape and get back out, and bishop c6 on the way. You know, if you go a4, so what? Still trap. You want to exchange up here. Black's doing well. If you try and take immediately, well, so what? Then the queen leaves the board. That's not ideal. And so after rook takes here, knight b5 was the move, but it was missed. Bishop c6 instead. So natural, but it allows Magnus to escape, and the game is back level. This one on the board, bishop e3 blocks the way. Now knight b5, threatening to go to fork Vegas. Magnus spots it, counters on the black king here, and after bishop d7, kicking the queen, it's a bit uncomfortable looking at the black king. We see Magnus offer the exchange. Of course, he wants to grind like a grandma deep into the end game, loves it, so Hans plays the great move queen f6, denying it, going a4 now from Magnus, the knight stumbling back towards the center, giving a pawn if Magnus wants it, but you're well advised not to take it. So Magnus didn't do this. The rook slides over. Say you come all the way back, you know, somewhere here or d3, whatever, then this one drops, and if you try bishop b5, well, you can chop it off, and this one's an annoying move. Not only do you set up these tactics, but after king h2, whoop, you didn't see that one coming, right? It was a double attack. That pawn drops, black's doing fine. So after knight d6, the pawn wasn't taken. Magnus plays the great move, queen a5, pressuring c7, and of course you never want to go rook c8, terribly passive, plus of course you take, hit the rook anyway, so Hans plays the good move, knight f5, go for the counterplay, hit the bishop. Magnus ignores it though, takes on c7, because if you carry on taking, execute the threat, then white takes here, you're hitting the knight, you're hitting the undefended rook, no good, let's run it back. So what does Hans do? He takes on a4, excellent move. Now he's threatening to take the white bishop. So Magnus saves it like this, and queen e6 is the best move. Pour some sugar on the rook. But what do we see? The very stinky knight h4. You don't usually want to sideline them, but here it sets up some great attacking ideas. The reason it's terrible though is for something very specific, a tactical shot. What does Magnus have here? He can whisper away, do you even rook lift, bro? That is a double attack on the minor pieces, and you're threatening rook f4. So what to do? You know, say you save the bishop, one of the top lines is actually trying to give up a pawn, but you don't even go for it. You just go rook f4, and what does the queen do? You know, say you go queen g5 to stay with the knight, then white crashes through here, and it actually leads to a mate, not just crashing through, the bishop cuts the escape square. So that's no good. Say you stay with this square here, queen e6, then the knight drops. These are the problems. This is why we didn't see it captured. So we run back to knight h4. I'm going to turn off this bar here, sorry, before my computer just crashes out. We're going to carry on without the bar. Knight h4 was played. Magnus instead goes rook b8. Whoops, there we go. Misses the tactic here, but he is going for a different one. You know, don't take, you literally get mated. This king just can never escape. So that's why we see after rook b8, queen e6 is played, protecting the rook, of course. Now we see king h2, bishop c6. I mean, Hans's whole position is just hanging by a thread. He's attacking this pawn twice, of course, but you know, rook b6 looks dangerous. Then there's rook c8 though. You just about hold on. We won't go down that line. Magnus now blunders away his advantage here. He's about a pawn and a half to the good. He plays queen g3. Now he comes back to attack the king once more, but Hans can now crash through here. You know, you never protected against that threat. And after bishop d4, going for the checkmate in one, there's g5. You shut down that attack and you give the knight an outpost. There's no g3 pawn to kick it. Hans fighting back. We get takes on e8, and this is the moment. It's move 31. At this point, the transmission cuts out. The next 29 moves, you know, I've stacked in, typed in, watching the replay of the game, and boy is it a classy finish. So exciting. We see queen takes on e8. Now this one marches in, and this looks absolutely terminal. You know, the pawn's attacked, the bishops are lasering, the knight looks a bit offside. How is this one participating in the defense? This looks dead. What are you doing here? If queen e6 to try and block the way, then you can check. And if you block with the bishop like this, then you can take here. Block with the queen, then what's the line? Probably this. I've turned off the engine, but I think this is the rough idea, right? So we come back after queen d6. Hans finds the excellent defensive resource. Knight h4, not easy to spot that, seeing that you can give this pawn and knowing that it's good for black because you can either check and pick up this bishop, or queen b8 is even deadlier, actually leads towards a checkmate. You know, here's a sample line. There are others, but you actually mate the king if you leave this diagonal exposed. That's why Magnus, after queen d6, knight h4, plays king g3, spotting the danger. Queen e1's now powerful, rotating to g1, but looks terminal to leave your own back rank. So that's why we see queen e6 played. Now Magnus checks, but now you can block with the bishop, and you don't have to defend a pony here. It already saved itself. And what do we see Magnus now do? Huge blunder, right? He's in the driving seat, but f4 blows all of his
mushrooms.
Hands can now check from e1 on the exposed king, and it's just deadly. You know, say you step up here, right? This is a sample line of how you actually mate that king. Many others, I mean, it's just horrible. You either get mated or you give loads of material after this check. You know, here's another line, right? And again, the king is getting hunted, pawn could be running, bishop's covered, etc. But queen e1 check, missed. After f4 from Magnus, now we see f5 from Hans in response. Again, a terrible move. I mean, the tactics are insane. I just want to show you one more. Bishop c4. You skewer these guys, right? So takes, of course, but then you don't take with check, which is what you might be thinking. But queen f6, look at that. You threaten mate, and how do you stop it all? You know, queen f7, bam, deliver the mate. Queen c7, then you still do this. You chase the king around, you win the queen. Many lines like this, there's just nothing to be done but actually give the queen for bishop. Really nice attack. Bishop c4 was a killer. But after f5, Magnus misses it. They're both low on time. We see instead takes on g5. Natural, because you're now attacking the knight. And if takes like this, you know, the queen could recapture. Or there's the bishop c4 lines again, if it gets spotted. So Hans, maybe he saw bishop c4, or maybe he just saw queen takes with check. He drops back the knight already, says please take a second pawn, go for it, no worries. But he's starting to coordinate now. He's got these check ideas once more. So Magnus plays queen f6. Loves getting the queens off the board, of course, and threatens mate here, and that's why Hans now shuts it down. He can technically check, but it's a different game. It's back roughly level. We see this one played, but it's not actually a good move. Pawn recaptures, and Magnus is now with a big advantage with the bishops, the advanced pawn. This one attacked, defended, but now this one drops. Magnus a pawn to the good, and not just any pawn, right? It's running, bishops, open board. We see check. Let's watch the master of the endgame go to work. King f7 here, not taking on h3, by the way. You know, then this check came. I guess Hans was worried, but even so, this check, massive move. Magnus misses it. Why is this so good? If you block like this, so natural, then you can take, king recaptures. Yes, you've given your bishops, but black is just in a bind. You know, the king has to step up guard the pawn so that the knight's actually free to move and come and stop this one. But then you push anyway, and basically you just overload the knight and king. You know, they get absolutely trousered. Here's one sample line. Say the king doesn't go and stays with the pawn. Well, then how are you getting the knight around? Pawn keeps running. You know, what's the idea? You can keep attacking things. These are the general ideas, right? You're getting trousered by both pawns. So we run back. That was the way to go. But after king f7, Magnus drops this bishop all the way back and covers h3, which is attacked from afar by Hans. Now after bishop e6, you can get this pawn running and your own bishop's not blocked out, but it wasn't the best. Knight h4 now. This one runs on. Knight f5 hits this one. It centralizes, attacks that pawn. Knight g3. So much going on. You know, if bishop takes here, looks great, but then you get this liquidation, opposite colored bishops, dead draw. That's a sample line. That's why taking on f4 not so good. That's why Magnus goes bishop d3. Saves his bishops, says you take me, I take you. Hans doesn't like it. He brings the knight back to defend here and attack f6. We now see pawn h4, bishop d5, and after that one, it looks like Hans is blockading everything, but again, there's this phenomenal winning move here. What could Magnus play in this position? It's our old favourite, pawn to c ships, and again Magnus misses to play the move. Unfortunately, I haven't got the back cave grayed out board here to show it's a sideline. You know, I've had to come into a different view. Now why does this work? If takes, bam, you kill black on this diagonal. King goes somewhere, you check. You know, this is the problem. You make the queen. What if you don't do it that way? You know, what if, I don't know, steps back here? Again, there's these problems. You know, this is just absolutely marching. So you cannot take the pawn. That's why actually you have to take with the knight here, but then this runs something like this, and white's actually winning, technically making the queen straight away, winning the minor piece, not best, but still a good line. Anyway, white is winning here. I mean, normally Magnus finds these ideas, his hand's shaking, his nerves are going, the adrenaline, everything, the emotions, he's just not on it. He plays king e2 here, excuse me. Now Hans can push the pawn with check, king e3. Now we see this one drop and suddenly it's 2v2 and Hans is coordinating. We see the knight bounce in, these bishops block the f-pawn, king marches in, the knight cementoed, few more moves here, and you can see where this is headed, right? Absolute stalemate, bishop g3 played, and the players agree a tense draw. Magnus slams down the pieces again at the end of this game. High drama, high tension. Finally, we've recapped it now, the moves that were never seen. Hope you enjoyed this one, and if you want to see another incredible game that these guys played in the quarter final of the World Chess Championship, Blitz, then have a look at the video on screen. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon.